And welcome back, everyone, to the Pokemon Creation Series. From Brandon F., we have, what is the Pokemon team of Jabba the Hutt? So, yeah, how do you make a team for a guy like this? I mean, he's a giant, slightly anthropomorphic slug creature, has a lust for young humanoid women, and he's a gangster. He's the head of the Hutt cartel until his death. So where do we go from this? I knew I needed something that was slug-like, and one option came to mind, but I went with Gastrodon first. Now, Gastrodon, I just went with the standard of his standard Pokemon. There actually aren't a lot of slug-based Pokemon out there, too. You have Slugma and Macargo, which, thinking of it, could have worked a little bit, but Macargo is a snail, not a slug. The heat, as a fire type, means that it could have worked to represent like the sands of Tatooine where he lived, but I went more with the Gastrodon. It's more, banana, banana split color, so its coloring looks a bit more attuned to Jabba himself, so I like that. But he is also a gangster, and a gangster Pokemon needs some gangsters. For example, Alolan Raticate. Not only is it it's a bit chubbier than its normal Cantonian counterpart due to the amount of food it eats. It is essentially kind of like a mob boss in many ways. It runs the groups of Rattata that go and steal from people. So I think this works well as a Mon that he would have had on his team. Not to mention the fact that he's also got terrible table manners and is a bit of a glutton and has a good appetite. So Snorlax, I think, was a key Mon to be on the team. Just a big burly Mon with a lot of heft to it. But there's also another kind of crime boss Pokemon out there, the head honcho, if you will. Segue. Honch Crow. And yeah, it's not just like a wizard, it's the head honcho of the Murkrow. So this also works as a nice crime boss kind of Pokemon. It's got a bit of a film noir look to him, works out great. That being said, though, as the head of a cartel, he would have access to, probably more powerful Pokemon if he wanted them. And the only other slug-based Pokemon I can think of besides Gastrodon and the Slugma line is Goodra, which is a slug dragon type Pokemon. It would make sense that he probably would have this as one of technically his ace Pokemon. It is exceptionally powerful, very defensive, got a big butt on it. I didn't want to do Hisuian just because I didn't think that one really matched well here. And it's less slug-like and turns more into a snail, so that does also make sense. But last but not least, I knew I needed something that represented the rancor. Because that was Jabba's pet. He loved his rancor. He fed people to it all the time. Or fed it people all the time because he loved his rancor. So how do you do a rancor in Pokemon? Do you go with a Pokemon that's more design-wise closer to the rancor, which there aren't a lot? Or do you go with something that's known, has been documented, say like a Kyurem, Kyurem, I think it is. Anyway, Kyurem that's been documented to have eaten people. Kyurem is a known man-eater. What do you do? Well, I didn't want to go Kyurem. I'm gonna probably rotate the name because a little bit just because I've never known how to pronounce it myself. I didn't want to go that route because, I guess it could be his big ace in the hole, but beyond the fact that 8 people, there's nothing about that really that works. It's an ice-type Pokemon, ice-type dragon, and that just doesn't make sense for the Rancor even without it being a non-desert. The Rancor is not a desert creature. It's actually found in forests and jungles usually. I think there are subspecies too, but point being is that didn't work apart from the large Pokemon that 8 people route. So instead, I went with Blood Moon Ursaluna. It's a large Pokemon. It stands like 11 feet tall. And it stands on 2 legs. It's this giant, monstrous Pokemon that does tower over people. There's no documentation that it ate anyone, but it is a beast. Arguably, it's actually probably a stronger Pokemon in some respects, not stat-wise, mind you, than Goodra. If I quickly go and find the stats to compare Goodra and Blood Moon Ursaluna. This while Gudra has the overall better stats, no doubt about it. It's got a base stat total of 600, being a pseudo legendary. Most of its stats go more either into its base, like its defenses, and like a solid attack stat. I think that, or it's a solid. One second. Nope. I want to go this one. Um, Sorry. I hate when the computer decides to be slow like this. We're just gonna do that. All right, and we're gonna do this. We're gonna go here. We go now. So let's see here. Gudra, real quick. Kalos Gudra. Where are you, Gudra? There you are, Gudra. So let's see here. Gudra, real quick. But the stat line on Gudra is, if this will decide to load at all appropriately, is Gen 9. Thank you very much. I don't care about where it is. The stats haven't changed. As far as I know, they haven't changed. So let's see. Gudra. There we are. And okay, so Gudra's stat line, if this will ever decide to load, dear God. I hate when the internet's just being finicky and slow for no reason other than it can be, because I've got something open or something like that. All right. Point being, and sheer attacks, because this damn computer just wants to be slow for no reason other than it can be. Okay, now it's good. Now it's finally there. Gudra's stats are mostly in its defenses. Actually, its bulk is in its special defense. It's a special defense tank with 100 in normal defense as well, which is great. 110 special attack, 100 attack, and 80 in HP. So yeah, I mean, physical attacks. Not there are a lot of physical fairy moves out there, but physical attacks are a little problematic for it, to be sure. But still got 100 in normal defense. Honestly, the places where it just kind of loses a little bit of oomph is its speed, which means it is slow. I mean, not the slowest thing in the world, mind you, but slow enough. Let's see here. Okay, so we're gonna just go over here, go down this way, and then around there, and then do. No, there you are. So yeah, it's so its slowest speed stat is its speed at 60, which is slow. And in its defense, Ursaluna is actually slower, but Ursaluna Blood Moon form has a grand total, if I remember correctly. Standard Ursaluna actually has it has 140 in attack and 130 in HP. Blood Moon Ursaluna is actually only slightly faster, which is weird because it's upright, at 52 for its base speed. Its special defense is 65, so its special defense stat is also crap. But its special attack and its special defense, if I'm getting that right. No, I'm not. I'm getting that wrong. Hold on 1 second here. Ursaluna. Gotta get that stat line right here. Okay, normal Ursaluna, there it is. So its attack is 70. Its HP is 113, so it's got better HP stat, but its defense is 120, and its special attack is 130. So while its special defense and speed are less than, and attack are less than Gudra's, it makes up for it by having a much higher HP stat, defense stat, and special attack stat. By a large margin, I should add. Because Gudra's attack stat is only 100. It's 100. Its special defense or special attack is 110, and its HP is 80. It doesn't just surpass Gudra in this front. It like clears it by a mile. So the question would just come down to, if, say, the Gudra and the Ursaluna fought, who would win in the fight? Because in terms of straight attack stat, special attack stat, Ursaluna is going to be hitting harder, especially with that signature move, which was Blood Moon Ursaluna, which, if I'm not mistaken, was like Blood Moon something or other. What was the name? I'm trying to remember what the name of that move was. That signature move. Let's see here. It's got to be here somewhere. Blood Moon Ursaluna. Where are you? Egg moves, Moonlight. No, not Moonlight. Can't find the Blood Moon's signature ability, unfortunately. Although I could probably find it this way. Let's see here. Blood Moon. All right. Anyway, I digress. I'm lingering too much on this. The point being is that this thing can kind of act as a second ace, is what I'm saying. Even though it's not as strong as Gudra in terms of stats, it makes up in places Gudra doesn't have. And so actually, I think this works out great as a Rancor kind of analog. Well, it's never confirmed to have eaten anyone. It is a bipedal large Pokemon with arms kind of similar to the Rancor a little bit. Not quite in terms of their design, but in terms of the way they are demonstrated, displayed, if you will. So I think it's a pretty solid team. It's actually not a badly balanced team either, all things considered. It doesn't have a huge amount of weaknesses. It's got 4 main weaknesses. 2 grass with the 2 ground types and the grass ground type. Unfortunately, Gastrodon's going down hard. 3 weaknesses to fighting with your 3 normal types, unfortunately. Your 3 normal types and a quad weakness on the Raticate. Luckily, Honchkrow mitigates the fighting weakness with flying. And unfortunately, the 3 weaknesses to Fairy with your 2 dark types and Dragon, and then 3 weaknesses to Ice with your 1 ground normal type, Gudra, and Honchkrow. Luckily, Ice is resistant by water, so Gastrodon is only neutral to Ice, fortunately. On the flip side, though, you've got a lot of strengths. Times 2 strength against fire with the 2 ground types / water type. You got a times 2 strength against rock, same. Times 2 strength against steel with the same 2 ground types. You got times 2 strength against electric, again the ground types. Times 2 strength against psychic, which are 2 dark types. Times 2 strength against poison, which are 2 ground types as well, and times 2 strength against ghost, which are 2 dark types. Unfortunately, that does mean that unlike some other teams where they can kind of sweep certain types, this team can't sweep any one specific gym. When it comes to how well this team actually does, there aren't a lot of gyms regions you could actually, in theory, become the champion in. In Kanto, you would clear the entirety of the gyms without any difficulty. Brock, even though Shellos is slow, Brock's team is not very good, so you should be fine. By the time you get to Misty, you should have evolved Rattata into Alolan Raticate, which means it will already have fully evolved. Well, I mean, it's not huge stats, but its dark typing is advantageous against Starmie, and it should know Bite. And I think Crunch maybe. I don't quite remember that one. Then Snorlax can help deal with the electric typing just because of its bulk, even though these guys can handle it. At that point, you're not going to have a problem with Erica, and you'll be leveled up enough with a lot of these guys to be able to just handle Koga. At that point, now you have your full team. You're immune to You're immune to Sabrina's team with 2 Pokemon. You should be able to handle Blaine no problem, and Giovanni isn't even that big of a deal. No, believe it or not, the problem is one that you don't normally have a problem with. It's Lorelei. She has a team of 5. She's an allegedly ice, but she's an ice water specialist. And right out the gates, you got 3 of your strongest Mon who are weak to ice. Cloyster, Lapras, Jinx, Dugong. They're all, you're not in a good way against that team at all. I'd go so far as to say you might be in some serious trouble. Because if she gets even any one solid ice type move off of any one of your 3 big hitters, which would be at least the bottom row here, 2 of your big hitters, you are in serious trouble. I don't know if it's 100% you could get past her, but I don't think it's impossible because you still have Snorlax, who's got a lot of bulk. You still got Gastrodon, who, while not strong against ice, can at least resist ice, and Raticate can pull some shenanigans. Then you go into Bruno, and again, fighting, you're actually weak against fighting. You're not strong against fighting either. You can handle the 2 Onix, no problem, but then you guys still deal with Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, and Machamp. And the only thing you really got going for you is a flying Honchkrow, whose stats are good, but not good enough to take on the entirety of that team. Especially if I remember correctly that the Hitmonchan does have elemental punches on it. If it doesn't, then you might be okay. Agatha actually shouldn't be that big of a problem. You'd be able to handle her poison types with your ground types and the ghost types with your dark types. It's Lance where I think you might end up stopping. And this is really just down to the point that the only thing you got good to have against dragons is Gudra. Not to mention he also has Aerodactyl. He also has Gyarados on the team. And a fully evolved Dragonite as well. That's tough, especially because we'd probably be going with Leaf Green or Fire Red, not just Black and White 1. So abilities would be available. The physical special split isn't quite there yet, but regardless, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't. I want to say no. You can't. You wouldn't get past Lance. But I don't think it's impossible either. It would then come down to dealing with Blue. And unfortunately with Blue, that's touch and go because you got Pidgeot, which you have no strength against flying either. Not that you're weak to fly, you're just not strong against it. So, and Gastrodon's going to be immune to half of Gastrodon's typing. So, because you're probably having Earthquake and Mud Ball or something on this team, Gastrodon. So you want to swap out, but that means whatever you're swapping in is going to have to take a hit. So you probably want to take one of your biggest, bulkiest ones in there, either Gudra or Snorlax. My money personally would be on Snorlax. Snorlax will take the hit. You're going to be duking it back and forth a little bit. Snorlax probably wins, but then Alakazam comes in. Snorlax probably have to take the hit and go down. You bring in one of your dark types. I don't believe that Alakazam has any non-psychic moves, so you should be fine there. Then the Rhydon comes in. Now, luckily, Gudra can learn water moves naturally, so you'd want to throw that against the Rhydon, or throw the Gastrodon against it. You then got to deal with fire, grass, and water, and it would all depend on what his starter is. And unfortunately, every one of those is kind of an answer to something on this team, save for Gudra, who resists all 3 types. Which means a lot of your mon are going to start going down. But I wouldn't say it's impossible. I just don't think it's a lock in any way, shape, or form. Especially because it's not a lock against Lorelei, and it's not a lock against Lance either. You're going to have to do it's going to be a lot of struggle there. But I would still say a tentative maybe. I would say you could get past most of Johto until you hit Price and Claire. Price being an ice type, and at that point in the game, you do not even have Sliggoo yet. You still have Goomy. Yes, you will have Blood Moon or someone here, so that helps, but it's weak against ice. The only thing you have on the team that's not weak against ice at that point is Raticate and Gudra and Snorlax, which certainly have bulk, but they have no strength against ice. And he has a Dugong on the team, too, who's got water on there. So your water moves aren't even going to be good against Dugong. Snorlax is going to have to bulk its way through a lot of that fight. I think it's going to be kind of your MVP a bit. But and Blood Moon Someone can still deliver a solid attack before going down. It's got enough bulk to it as long as the ice move is more physical than special to survive. And I honestly think it could still probably take a hit. And then Piloswine would be weak to water, so it's not impossible. But then you got to deal with Claire, and Claire resists pretty much everything on this team except for what would now be, if I'm not mistaken, a Sliggoo. But even then, oof, man, it's a tough go of that battle, absolutely. Yeah, but I think this is where Blood Moon Ursaluna comes in clutch because ground is still a very powerful typing. Mind you, I believe her Kingdra would be able to take the damn thing down. And so again, you got to kind of bulk your way through with Snorlax. Honchkrow can definitely get some work in, so can Raticate. But it is not an easy fight to go through. Just not at all. So that would lead us into Elite Four, which luckily you should be able to handle both Koga. In fact, you'd handle most of Elite Four without any problem. Bruno, again, be a little difficult. Especially because, once again, you do not have Gudra at this point. You wouldn't have Gudra until Lance. Which means, yeah, half your team is already going to get taken down by Machamp, Hitmonlee, Hitmontop. Oh, you might actually stop at Bruno, to be honest. And even if you don't, I don't think you're getting past Lance. just because he's, again, got Gyarados, Charizard, Aerodactyl, and 3 fully evolved Dragonite, under-leveled, mind you, but 3 fully evolved Dragonites. Yeah, no, I don't think this team does well in Johto. You then, honestly, no joke, in Hoenn, you stop at Brawly. You should be able to handle Roxanne, no problem, but Brawly, you don't even have a fully evolved Raticate at that point. You just got to times quad weak to Brawly, Rattata. And Shellos is too slow to do anything, so you're done at Brawly. If you could get to Steven, could you beat him? Honestly, your biggest problem is going to be dealing with that Skarmory. Your ground type means nothing against that Skarmory. Steel resists Dragon. It's not strong against Dragon, but it resists it. And that thing has Stealing, Toxic, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to set up Spikes. You're in trouble just from the get. Now, you can handle the bulk of his team without any difficulty. In fact, you theoretically can handle every single Mon on that team with relative ease past that. But you got to get past the Skarmory, and you don't have a good answer for it. I would tentatively say maybe. You can't even get past Rorik. And that's sad, but Shellos is too slow, and that Cranidos' attack stat is too high, and it has Headbutt, so it's just going to take out the Shellos. Even if you get past the Geodude and the Onix, you're not getting past that. Even if you could, you're not getting past Gardenia, because it's a Grass-type gym leader, which your Shellos still is quad weak to, and your Raticate still not going to be any good against. So then the question is, can you beat Cynthia? And the answer to that is straight out no. You would have to first swap, because you're always going to lead with your starter, which is Gastrodon in this case. You want to get out of that, go into one of your dark types, so at least you're neutral and can get some damage in with a dark type move against freaking Spiritomb. But you're probably losing Raticate in the process. Honchkrow probably takes it down. She would then probably bring in either Milotic or, assuming her AI decides to choose correctly, Milotic or maybe Lucario, because it would be neutral. If it's Milotic, it has Ice Beam, which means that Honchkrow is going down quick, and you're in trouble after that. Because just the Ice Beam alone on Milotic, which is not a weak Pokemon by any stretch of the means, is taking down the majority of this team. So I don't think you beat Cynthia. And Unova, you'd struggle a little bit in certain gyms, but you'd be able to get to the Elite Four. Marshall, though, is a problem because he's a fighting type gym leader, and half your team is weak, or Elite Four member, and half your team is weak to fighting. Particularly one of your big boys is weak to fighting. So that's going to be a bit of a struggle. Yes, you have Honchkrow, but Honchkrow is frankly neutral to fighting, so that's actually not a good route to go down. You probably want to deal with Goodra more than anything else, and even then, that's not a guarantee. If you can get past it, though, you're not getting past either Alder or Iris. Iris's Dragon team is too powerful, unfortunately. You only have one good answer for Dragon, that's Goodra. And the answer for Goodra is also Dragon. And she's got 3 heavy-hitting Dragons on the team. I mean, she starts out with freaking Hydreigon, for God's sake. And then with Alder, he's starting out with a Selgor, which, yeah, ground is... Actually, no, ground is weak to bug. So that's not a good answer. You want to swap into Honchkrow, but Honchkrow is going to be neutral to it because not resistant because of the dark typing. So a Selgor outspeeds it. So both those Mons, well, something is getting hit hard. And even if it's probably not taking down a Selgor immediately either, even if you have a flying move, it's too fast. So Honchkrow might even go down before you get a hit off on it. By the time you do take it down, because you're going to have to use either Snorlax or Goodra for it, you're then going to be after dealing with either Escavalier, Buffalon, and that's not even bringing up Volcarona, who admittedly is not a big problem for this team to deal with, but the fact is, by the time you get the Volcarona, you're going to be lucky to have 2 Mon left. And how lucky, or still, if it's one of your strongest ones. So you can't beat Alder either. In Kalos, you're not getting past Karina. You can make it to Karina, but the problem is she's a fighting type gym leader. Third one, the only thing you have that's not straight out weak is Gastrodon, and it's not even going to be able to use its ground moves against Hawlucha. So you're kind of screwed there. Could you beat Diantha? The immediate answer is freaking no. You could not beat Diantha. Why? Because again, you start with big words here, Gastrodon. She leads with Hawlucha, which means you need to do something fast. You need to swap out But the problem is you swap out, that thing's getting a Swords Dance off and outspeeds everything on this team. It also doesn't just have Flying Press, it has X Scissor and Poison Jab. So even Honchkrow, who is at least resistant, kind of, isn't going to be able to just feign immune attacks from it. And everything else, except for Gudra, is going to be hit hard. Hard. So it's... Assuming you take that down, you're probably down. You're probably down at least Eradicate. You're probably down at least Halucha, and maybe even Gastrodon before you take that thing down. Which leads into Tyrantrum, which then you can bring in Blood Moon Ursaluna, sure. But the problem, or Gudra, but the problem is Tyrantrum, if I remember correctly, would outspeed both of those. So it's getting a hit in no matter what. Now, Aurorus comes in next. It's slower, I think, than both these guys. That doesn't mean you beat it outright, though. But maybe you do. But then she brings out her own Gudra, which something goes down at that point. You're down to 2 mon at that point, I guarantee it. Then you got to deal with Goregeist. I'd say you sacrifice Snorlax more than anything else. Goregeist can easily take on the Ursaluna, and that's problematic because no normal type move is going to work on that. Although I think its signature move does ignore that, if I remember correctly. And then you got to deal with Mega Gardevoir, which at that point your team is just gassed. So no, you can't beat Diantha. Galar, you immediately stop at Milo for obvious reasons. Leon, if you were able to get to him, you actually wouldn't be as bad off as you think, because Gastron's ground typing is good against the Aegislash. Surprisingly, that Dragapult isn't that good against ground. It's one of the few typings that Dragapult, even though it's a sweeper, is not good against. Ground is one of the few types it's not good against. So, that being said, it still has Shadow Ball, it still has Dragon Breath. It can probably still take a hit from Gastron. So Gastron would probably end up going down. You'd probably have to, then have to really make a strong decision here. Do you go Gudra, risk one of your big hitters? Do you go Halucha, which does at least have somewhat of a type advantage, and then save your big hitters for later? Personally, I'd probably go the Honchkrow route first, because Honchkrow really isn't going to be aiding you down the road in the fight later on. Mr. Rhyme, depending on the fight, maybe, but that's about it. You're better off holding on to Gudra. And even still, but the problem is, though, you're actually, I take that back, because he can just Thunderbolt that and get rid of the Honchkrow. So you're actually probably better off, you're better off with Eradicate, to be honest. If nothing else, try to get a hit in on. But it's probably going to get taken down. So actually, yeah, you're probably best off going with either Ursaluna, because its ground typing is going to make it immune to the Ghost type move, or the Electric move. Also, its normal type will make it immune to the Ghost move. So you're going to want, or Snorlax, frankly. So that means that he can only use Fire and Dragon on it. So it's got to be one of those guys. Eventually that goes down. Haxorus comes out. Can you take down the Haxorus in one go before it gets the Dragon Dance off? Because if that Dragon Dance goes off, you're done. It's going to start sweeping, because its attack stat is already busted. Maybe. The problem is that move, Ursaluna's signature move, it is like a Hyper Beam. It does recharge. So it's debatable. And then you still got to deal with either Mr. Rhyme, Rhyperior, or Seismitoad. Then the starter. And then you get the Charizard. So no, I don't think you can beat Leon. I think you can get farther in the team and give that Dragapult a lot more problem than other teams, but I don't think you can beat him. And then honestly, you stop at Katie. I don't think you can beat Katie, honestly, even though you should be fine against Bug. You'd think you'd be fine against Bug, but 3 mon, faster than the Shellos, going to get damage in quicker. You're just not beating her. So then could you beat Gita, last but not least? And debatable, you'd swap out against the Apathra with a dark type. So the crash attack, can't remember the full name of it, would just fizzle out. But then you gotta beat that. Then the Veluza, because she doesn't really have good AI, she just brings them out in order. The Veluza comes out. You're still immune, but now it's got water moves, so it might actually take down Eradicate or Honchkrow if you're not careful. Let's say it's the Eradicate. Then you bring out the Honchkrow, take care of it. Then I believe it is the Go-Goat. and you can take care of the Go-Goat, no problem with a Hunt. Well, the Conscript still might struggle a little bit, but you should be able to take care of the Go-Goat. But then the King Gambit comes out, and that's where you need to switch up. You need to throw back another ground-type Mon. But the problem is, doing that is going to leave you open to a Kowtow Cleave. You know it's coming, and it is going to hurt no matter what Mon you send out. Because that Supreme Overlord ability isn't maxed out, but it is, that's a broken ability. So whatever you, so my guess is you throw, I'd go Blood Moon Ursaluna. It's got a bit more bulk. In fact, it's got a lot more bulk. Then you use a ground type move, take down the King Gambit. That leaves you with Avalugg, which you unfortunately don't really have a good answer for on this team at that point because you don't have any fighting or fire moves. You don't even have rock moves, really. So, and again, I go by the natural moveset, not TMs. So, Blood Moon, the question is, do you want to risk the Blood Moon? I might throw Gastrodon in there because it's at least going to be neutral to ice. It can then deal some damage. It might go down. Snorlax has got better heft, so I would maybe send the Snorlax out after that. And then all you got to deal with then is Gita's Ace, which, what terrible ace, by the way. A terrible ace. You should have had Baxcalibur on the team, or you make King Gambit the ace. That's what you do. But anyway, I digress. So, yeah, you could beat Gita if you could get all the way. So that's my thoughts on Jabba's team. He would be the Hutt Supreme. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.